There were a few reasons that I really wanted to come to São Tomé. The rock itself is really amazing. I've never seen a peak quite like it. It just juts out of the jungle in a place so remote that most people don't even know where it is on a map. It's a hard route. It would be hard to send at any other crag, let alone in the conditions and the location, and so I think it's going to be a very good challenge. And the tower only comes into sight when you are close enough to actually see the wall through the trees. And what you see is this huge white cave where rock has broken away, completely different than the rest of the black tower. And it is massive. When you see photos of the tower, it looks like a narrow plug, but when you're standing at the base, you can't see either end of the wall. It truly is a big wall. Hi, I'm Sam Dalton. I'm 25 years old. I've been climbing since I was 3 years old. There are various definitions on what a free ascent is. Most people outside of the climbing world don't know what a free ascent is. They think it's just climbing without ropes. I generally clarify that we will be roped up, and a free ascent simply regards free climbing itself, and that is climbing with your own two hands as opposed to aiding or pulling on gear or other instruments. So climbing each pitch, each section of the route without falling is the goal of free climbing.
My name is Remy Franklin. I just turned 28 a couple days ago, and I've been climbing for about 10 years. When I started climbing in college, my first year of college, I could tell I'd found a sport that was going to be different than other activities in my life, that it was going to matter more to me. And I wasn't sure why that was for a long time, but I knew that devoting my life in some sense to climbing was something I wanted to do, and that's been really clear to me from the beginning of doing the sport, and it hasn't changed, which seems really weird because it's an activity that's otherwise totally useless, and most people don't see the value in. And even if I never climb at a level that matters to other people, it's a really important thing for me to do for myself.
We really just have no idea what we're in for. What I do expect is I expect it to be hot, I expect it to be humid, I expect it to be very hard. I think it's just going to be a physical challenge. I think it's going to wear us down a bit. You know, the hike in is no easy task, and so I think we're going to get to the wall exhausted and then have this task of trying to climb 3 513 pitches out a roof, you know, in the possible rain, in the heat. Yeah, I don't know what to expect, but I know it'll be exciting, that is for sure.
Oh fuck! Thanks.
The GoPro and machete are here.
The key suspects.
Oh. He's there, Captain. Is it looking at me?
Yeah, it's looking the other way too. It's 360.
Whoa, crazy. Rem, do something fun with a machete.
Don't know how to use it.
I don't know if this has audio. I don't know if this has audio. This probably does. Jacob, does this thing have audio? Hot damn.
I also learned that there are lots of endemic species here. It's a really special place in terms of species diversity because it's farther off the mainland than you might think. I think it's like several hundred kilometers. So a lot of the species that have made it out here have evolved in really unique ways, which is pretty cool. So it seems sort of like a hidden gem. A lot of people that I've mentioned the trip to, the large majority have never heard of São Tomé before. But it seems like a really special place in the world at a global context. And so I feel really lucky to have gotten to stumble upon it, specifically for this climb. I decided to come on this trip because usually when Sam invites me to do something, it's worth it. So I've been climbing with Sam for a few years now, and it's been good to follow his lead. I think there's two things that are really important in a good climbing partner. I'd say one is just someone who has an equal amount of psych to you, who's like just loves the sport, who's really passionate about it and can bring a positive attitude consistently. And Sam's definitely been that person for me. He's always showing up on trips like ready to go, ready to climb hard. And that just brings a lot of energy to climbing. I think it's really important. And I think the other thing for me is climbing with people that push me to climb and try harder routes. Because that's really where we see growth in climbing, is when we're trying things that are at our limit. And I try to bring that for myself, but to have someone else there who's saying, let's do this thing that I'm not sure I'm able to do, really adds the meaning to climbing. It's why I show up for the sport. And Sam's been doing that the last couple of years, pushing me to get on harder routes, try harder things. And it's been really satisfying. It's been really fun to climb with him.
The climbing itself is largely technical. There are small roofs that you need to pull and a larger one at the top of the fourth pitch, but for the most part, the climbing itself is near vertical. There are a lot of small edges, a lot of side pulls, a lot of balancy and body position oriented moves. It's much higher quality than I imagined. There's good movement, a wide variety of holds, but it's still definitely adventure once you leave the cave. The rest of the route is pretty much these volcanic blocks stacked on each other. Some are very intact, some jiggle, some completely move. And the result is that a lot of the time you're finding hand jams or finding slots between rocks. And it just makes for exciting climbing. You're constantly tapping on holds to see which ones budge and which ones don't.
Often on the rock, I forget that anything else exists, or I'm not even thinking about the idea of anything else existing. You know, I'm fully present with what I'm doing, with the movement at hand, with where I am, and thought sort of disappears in a way. I'm fully being in the moment. That moment of thoughts just dropping away and existing is I think really at the core of what it means to be human. And it sounds cliche when you say it, but when you experience it, you just want to spend more time in that space.
After pitch 14, the real rock climbing ends and you mantle a muddy ledge and enter the wet rainforest above you. You're slinging trees, you're trudging through jungle muck, climbing up loose boulders, and eventually the plain flattens out and you enter a grassy, padded down area in the middle of the summit.
Dude! Woo! Finally.
We were lucky enough to have a clearing of the clouds. You could see through the grass, you could see the green hills beyond. You could see the clouds and the precipitation moving around. You could see in all directions white of the clouds, and it was truly remarkable to stand upon that plug. Coming into this expedition, I knew it was going to be a big challenge. It sounded improbable. All my friends laughed at me like, oh yeah, good luck climbing that thing in a rainforest. But we came here, we were psyched, we trained really hard, we prepared extensively, and we achieved our goal. With that in mind, it makes me psyched for whatever comes next.